session 2 of Hearing God's Voice. We established yesterday that God does speak to us personally. However, we have to learn how to listen. Jesus' own disciples had to learn things. For example, they asked Jesus to teach them to pray. Now, these are men who would have been taught since they were a child, and yet obviously they saw something different in Jesus, the way he prayed, so they needed to be taught. We know too that children need to be taught how to communicate. When they first start talking, they'll just say whatever's on their mind. And so they need to learn over time how to approach people, how to say what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, or not say what's not appropriate. We have to learn how to listen. We have the story of Samuel as a young boy. He knew nothing about God speaking to him. He, as a young boy, was serving in the temple with the priest Eli. He was on his bed one night when he heard his name being called. So he didn't know anything about God speaking to him. He naturally ran into Eli and said, "Yes, here I am, what do you want?" And Eli said, "I didn't call you, go back to bed." It happened a second time and the same thing. The third time it happened, Eli woke up to the fact that it was possibly God that was calling Samuel. And so he told Samuel what to say if he heard the voice again. Well, he did. And he said what Eli had told him to say. "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." God had a very detailed message for Samuel. We don't know whether it was an audible voice. Certainly the calling of his name was. But it was a very detailed message, and in the morning Samuel was able to remember every detail of that message. Samuel, of course, was to become a great prophet, and he would need to listen to what God told him to say or to do at any time. But it was a learning process from the time he was very young. So we need to learn how to hear God speak to us. Sometimes a word will just come out of the blue, but more often it's something we need to be intentional about. We might want to know what God says about a particular situation, so we need to spend time in prayer about it. A helpful way to start our prayer time is maybe with a worship song or something, just playing some worship music or something that will just get us to focus on God and not ourselves. If there's something that is really troubling us, we need to offload that to God to get it out of the way so it's not in the way of listening to him. Have an example of this in Hannah, who had no children, and she was desperate about that. And so she went into the temple and she was praying with such anguish that Eli, the priest, thought that she was drunk. But she wasn't. She was just pouring out her heart to God. And it was after she'd poured out her heart to God that she was able to receive the answer to her prayers. Once we've handed over what's on our mind, then we're able to listen to what God has to say to us.